you're talking about trust. And I think they trust us. And they believe that we're, number one, confidential, and number two, when we say we're going to call them back, we do. I mean, I was on vacation in Arizona, and I called somebody back because I promised that I would. And I was, kidding with them. And I said, I promised that I'd call you back this week, and I'm on vacation, but I'm calling you back. So I think there's trust there, and I think they understand that we're there to help them. And they know that, and we know that. As far as personality is concerned, I think maybe the way we grew up years ago, we had that image armor, we had that Superman attitude. We grew up in maybe an inner city, and we just accepted things as they happened and went back to work. I think today, the police officers of today, they don't have that that attitude or that thing about them, that total image armor. They want to have it, but they really don't, and they mentally break down. We mentally broke down silently. They're at least mentally breaking down, and they're telling somebody, or they're calling, or they're seeking help. And that's why we're here, and that's why I think we're doing a fantastic job.
Yeah, it was interesting. Pat and I had an opportunity to do some training within the last year at the Newark Police Department. And for Pat to be back there after all those years from retiring and all those years in the streets, we had a chance to get feedback from the officers, right? About, would you call the line? Would you reach out for help? Will you be open with us? As we talk about suicide prevention and question, persuade, refer, will you help each other and be your brother's keeper? And basically they were resoundingly telling us that this was very important to them, that they wanted to do this, they wanted to support each other, that they're used to doing backup on the streets, and this is emotional backup, and they're ready to do it, and they're doing it informally, and they want to do more of it. And as a matter of fact, in the evaluations, they asked us for additional training, and they asked us to invite their family members in, which was amazing.
They wanted to have a family day. Now, years ago, you would never even think of telling your family or your wife or your children or anything what went on or what happened or what your job was like. Now, all of a sudden, we do 1,300 officers in Newark, and they want to have family day. They want to have the wives in. They want to have the girlfriends in. They want to have the sons and daughters in to talk to us. So I think the whole philosophy, has changed. They're looking for emotional help. They're looking for social help or mental health.
Yeah.
Whereby years ago nobody even thought about that.
Yeah.
You wanted to keep everything away from your family.
I think, another way we've seen the stigma change, and it's been a long road. I mean, I have to be clear that when we started 10 years ago, we decided we were going to memorialize the officers lost to suicide by participating in a walk called Out of the Darkness with the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention. So we created a banner that we had hoped would have the badges from every department where an officer killed himself. And when we started and we called the departments, the majority of them said no. And so to not leave out the memory of this officer who was lost to suicide, we decided to just put a simple star on the banner and remember that officer when we walked in memorial. So the banner had a whole lot of stars on it at the beginning. And then as time changed and the stigma, I think, was overcome, and it became more of this is a situation that can happen to you, to your partner, your best friend, your brother.
They got more confident.
They did. They felt like it's okay to say
they got more confident
that we lost someone to suicide, which really acknowledges the mental health issue as real in the law enforcement community. And this past year, every single department who we asked gave us a badge, and that became for us
big difference.
A big difference.
From 10 badges and 25 stars to 25 badges and 10 stars.
Yeah.
And then 30 badges and 2 stars.
Yep. So. And they began to show up. They began to come to the walk with the badge or do things that allowed us to know it's one officer at a time that the stigma is changing,
definitely. Most of the time, I would say 90% of the time that I give a a lesson or whatever you call it, a presentation on QPR. And after an hour, hour and a half of the presentation, without a doubt, 1, 2 officers will come up to me after class or come up to someone else after class and say, I know what you meant. I know what you mean. It happens to me. I saw it. I understand. I need help. And they'll come up to you after class. They won't say it in front of the class, but they'll say it after the class. And sometimes you could get them help immediately. Sometimes you can refer them. Sometimes you could give them phone numbers. Or if Cherie's with me, I'll just call Cherie over. I'll say, talk to this fella. There's so many people out there that are silent, but once they hear the hour, hour and a half presentation, they open up. So if I gave 100 presentations in 2 years, in my opinion, I've helped at least 100 people, because there's always one person, sometimes 2 in each class, that you could see it, you could feel it, you could hear it in their voices that they need help. And we get it.
It was the stories. It's the cop-to-cop sharing, and this whole idea of courage and advocacy, really happening every day on the phones and the trainings and the presentations, informally, where someone is willing to say, I've had an experience, this is what it is, I was super cop on the street, or I was this, or I was that, but I also have, overcome some challenges with my mental health. And it's that reality that they connect to. I mean, as much as, me being a police officer's wife or having some expertise in law enforcement, psychological services, that doesn't mean anything compared to an officer, who will say, I've had an experience and I've overcome it, and I'm going to talk to you about it, and I'm not going to be ashamed about it, and it's okay, and, how can we help you? That's what people respond to. That's why Cop2Cop works.